When we model objects, there are many times when we'll have to smooth or round edges, and probably the best tool for this is bevel. So let's take a look at how this works. Now I'm going to start simply, so I'm going to go ahead and just select this chair, and let's hide it by hitting Control H. Now I'm going to start with a simple polygonal cube. So I'm going to select cube, and let's just go ahead and drag out a very simple cube. Now, bevel works best on edges and faces. So I'm going to start off with edges here. And I'm going to right click over this and go into edge mode. And I'm going to select 1, 2, 3 edges. So I'm going to leave this bottom one open. And then we can find bevel under Edit Mesh, Bevel. Now the hotkey for this is Control B, which is a very handy one to know. And let's go into our options just so we can see what they are. Now the options for this are the offset type. Now by default it's fractional, which means the fraction of the adjacent edge, or we can do absolute, which is a fixed distance. And now if you get that number wrong, you may actually get an inside out bevel, which might not be good. So I typically keep it at fractional. And then the width is actually that fraction. So in this case we're at 0.5. Then the number of segments that we are beveling, in other words, how round it will be, level of detail, that sort of thing, and then the depth. So let's go ahead and just select bevel. And when we do, it gives us this nice shape. Now notice how the bottom one did not bevel. That's flat, but these top 3 did. So we can change the fraction here. We can change the number of segments. We can change the depth. Now, if I bring that depth negative, look at how that creates kind of a concave effect. So I'm sure you can find ways to use that. And then we also have chamfer. So if you turn chamfer off, it basically just squares it off. Now, chamfer is that roundness that we're looking at. So there we go. There's our first bevel. Now, we can also bevel faces. So I'm going to select this face here. And let's do another Edit Mesh, Bevel. And as you can see, this bevels everything connected to the face. So it would be almost the same as if you were to select all 4 edges that surround that face and bevel it. And again, we have fraction, number of segments, and depth, and so on. So as you can see, we can bevel both faces and edges, and we can do it for multiples. So I can do multiple faces, multiple edges, and so on. So let's do a little bit more of a practical application here. So I'm going to go ahead and go into object mode, select this, and delete it. And let's go ahead and do display, show last hidden. And that's our chair. Now this chair is supposed to be upholstered, and upholstery typically does not have sharp edges like this. So let's go ahead and take away some of those sharp edges. So I'm going to select this base here and right click over it. Let's go into face mode. So I'm going to go ahead and select this one here and then double click on this one, and that'll select all the faces in between. And what that does is it just selects only the front part of that. So let's go ahead and bevel these faces to see what we get. So I'm going to do Edit Mesh, Bevel. You can notice here it does a pretty nice little bevel there, but if we want, we can add in a few more segments. We can increase or decrease the fraction. But one of the things, notice here that when this little part here gets a little too far, we start to get a breakup in geometry. So we've got to be careful with that. And then we also have depth. But just by doing a very simple bevel, we get something that's not so sharp and looks a little bit more like upholstery. Now, we can certainly go through the entire chair and bevel and smooth out the edges as well. But hopefully this gives you a little bit of a glimpse into ways to use the bevel tool.